Greetings, this is Dr. Christie. Here is your International Sunday School lesson number 12 for February 20th. The title of the lesson is BILDAD Misspeaks God's Justice, and it is focused in the Old Testament book of Job, chapter 8, verses 1 through 10, and also including verses 20 to 22. Here are some interesting facts about Job. The research shows that the name Job has two possible meanings, one in Hebrew and one in Aramaic. The Hebrew name possibly means the persecuted one, and in the Aramaic version it means the repentant one. The author is unknown, but many believe that Job might have written it, or Moses, or one of the other contemporaries, because this book was written in the patriarchic age, as we see around the time when Genesis 11 and Genesis 12 might have been written. Some people believe that this is the oldest book that was written. The position in the Bible is as the 18th book, and it is the 18th book of the Old Testament. There are 42 chapters in the book of Job, with over 1,000 verses and over 10,000 words, depending on the version you use. And here are some observations you may have notice as you are reading through these 42 chapters. Many believe that this book of Job again is the earliest book of the Bible, and as I shared before, it is set during the times of the patriarchs. Some of the factors that indicate this is that Job lived about 140 years after the events of this book. This took place after chapter 42. Therefore, Job's lifespan might have been around 200 years. Abraham lived 175 years, so this may have been a little longer than Abraham's time on earth. Job is recorded in this book to have wealth measured in livestock. Chapter 1 verse 3 says that, and it is indicated that way as those people at the time used livestock and their accumulation of animals as a measure of wealth, not using gold and silver as of course we do today. Like Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, Job was the priest of his family, and he did present offerings of sacrifice unto God. So in this patriotic clan, Job is referred to as the leader, and he gives the name for God as Shaddai, or Almighty. There's no reference here to Israel in the book of Job. There's no mention of the Exodus from Egypt. There's not even the mention of the Mosaic law or the building of the tabernacle. But the book of Job tells of a man who lost everything. He lost his wealth, Job lost his family, and Job lost his health. However, we continue to know that Job he wrestled with the question, why? Why does this happen to good people? Why do we suffer? And that, of course, has never been answered, because we know the answer is found in God. It's God's world. God chooses to allow what he allows. We may continue to ask, but the answer is based in what God permits in this existence of life. We do know that also that the land of Uz, chapter 1, verse 1, is adjacent to the land of Midian at that time, where Moses lived when he was on the run from Pharaoh for 40 years. Again, we notice that the book of Job deals with the question of the righteous having to suffer, not just the wicked and evil people, your enemies. But we also notice in this book the sovereignty of God over everything, over creation. And we do realize when we read this book, Job's friends meant well, and they traveled from other areas, other regions, to visit Job to offer consolation and comfort. One of the main verses that you may read and remember is found Job 13, verse 15 and 16. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. he also shall be my salvation. I pray that these scriptures have meaning for you and that you hold on to them as well as you do your family, the keys to what's important to you. Because we know in this life journey, traveling through these life experiences, we will be afflicted, we will find challenges, obstacles, and barriers. And like Job, we should know that when God allows, we should still trust in him because he is our salvation. This has been interesting facts about the book of Job. Here are the 2 goals you should be able to achieve after your study of this lesson. First, you should be able to summarize BILDAD's explanation for Job's suffering, and that's shared throughout the passage as well as in verses 20 through 22. And then 2, you should be able to explain the error of BILDAD's conclusion. The lesson outline is divided into 5 sections. Section 1 is considered the condemnation to Job, and that is covered in Job 8, verses 1 through 4. Verses 1 through 2, Job is accused of being like blowing winds. Verse 3, there are those blasphemous claims against Job. And then verse 4 is the blistering accusation against Job by his friends. Section 2 is an exhortation, and that is covered in verses 5 through 7. Verse 5 is the urgent response encouraged to Job. Verses 6 through 7 is the favorable reply that is shared. Section 3 is focused in the reflection, and that is covered in verses 8 through 10. Verse 8 is the inquiry to search the past, and verses 9 and 10 is the encouragement to learn from the past. And then section 4 of this study is focused in the projection, almost like a prophecy by Job's friend BILDAD. Verse 20, BILDAD gives a double retribution of what he proposes what will happen for Job if he confesses. And then verses 21 and 22, Job's friend BILDAD gives vindication if he does not repent, his proposition of what he believes God is going to do against Job. These are your 4 sections of your study today. The lesson context, of course, gives you insight as to what was happening at the time of this writing for Job and his friends. This book of Job is among the oldest biblical texts that we have, and it deals with one of humanity's oldest challenges still today, and that is trying to maintain hope in the face of your suffering. And so our lesson text shares that experience, and the other desire by us today is the desire for justice in the midst of suffering. Job's suffering was the catalyst for his friends BILDAD, Shua, and Eliphaz. At the beginning of this book, Job chapter 1, verse 1, Job was described as blameless and upright, one who actively feared God and shunned evil. However, Job experienced undue tragedy. We don't know the reason for it. It is not stated. But it does share in this passage that Job's flocks and servants were either taken or killed. And that covers verses 13 to 17, the in-between section of our lesson, chapter 1. It also gives us understanding that Job's 10 children died. That's recorded in Job chapter 1, verse 2, and verses 18 to 19. It also shares that Job was afflicted with intense physical suffering. Chapter 2, verse 7 records that. But without an explanation for Job's tragedies, Job remained faithful to God and did not sin in what he said. However, Job's three friends, BILDAD, Eliphaz, and Zophar, are introduced to us in this passage, and they are introduced to us when they hear of their friend Job's suffering. They meet together, and then they go see him in order to sympathize with him and to comfort him. That's what they did in the biblical days. They had those professional mourners, and those people who were friends always appeared to give that person comfort. We have a watered-down version of that today. But when they reached Job, they were shocked at his appearance, and they just were unable to recognize him. They raised their voices, they wept, and they took a posture of mourning, remaining silent for 7 days and 7 nights. That's recorded in chapter 2. Finally, Job speaks, and he pours out his anguish and great despair. His suffering overwhelmed him to the point of his cursing his own birth. Now, when you get to that point, you feel real desolate. Job cried out that the thing he dreaded in life had happened. He experienced no consolation and no peace. And that, of course, was him sharing the loss of his children. In response, though, to Job's lament and his cries, his friends did a sort of intervention type of experience with him. And they continued to speak to Job, taking turns in a cycle back and forth, sharing what they thought possibly happened to Job and how they could give him some comfort. Eliphaz starts, and BILDAD, each of them address Job 3 times in this chapter. And his friend Zophar shared his thoughts twice. Each of these men argued was countered by Job in his response to what they said to him. This lesson today, lesson 12, the scriptures highlight BILDAD's first response to Job and his suffering, and it is reasonable to conclude that Job's friends were sincere, really sincere in wanting to care for Job, even though their counsel to him was unfounded and really way off track, thinking they're speaking on behalf of God and what they think God did. This is your context so you can understand what's happening as you read chapter 8, verses 1 through 10, and verses 20 to 22. These are the scriptures from the New International Version. Then BILDAD the Shuhite replied, "How long will you say such things? Your words are a blustering wind. Does God pervert justice? Does the Almighty pervert what is right? When your children sinned against him, he gave them over to the penalty of their sin. But if you will seek God earnestly and plead with the Almighty, if you are pure and upright, even now, he will rouse himself on your behalf and restore you to your prosperous state. Your belongings will seem humble, so prosperous will your future be. Ask the former generation and find out what their ancestors learned. For we were born only yesterday and know nothing, and our days on earth are but a shadow. Will they not instruct you and tell you? Will they not bring forth words from their understanding? Surely God does not reject one who is blameless, or strengthen the hands of evildoers. He will fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with shouts of joy. Your enemies will be clothed in shame, and the tents of the wicked will be no more. Job was a good and upright man who feared God and turned away from evil. He had a large household with 7 sons, 3 daughters, and many servants. Job was the richest man in the whole land and region, and he owned much livestock: 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 oxen, and 500 donkeys. Thinking his children may have sinned and cursed God, Job rose early and made an offering to the Lord for each family member. One day the angels and Satan presented themselves before the Lord. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan replied, "From roaming around on the earth." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Job is a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil." Satan answered, Does Job fear God for nothing? You have protected him and blessed the work of his hands. But stretch out your hand against everything that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. The Lord replied, "Everything Job has you can have, but do not lay a finger on Job." So Satan left to put his plan into action. A messenger came to Job with bad news, saying, "Attackers have killed your servants and stolen your donkeys and oxen. I alone have escaped to tell you." Then a second messenger came to Job, saying, "The fire of God fell from heaven and burned the sheep and servants, and I alone have escaped to tell you." Then a third messenger came to Job, saying, "Attackers stole your camels, killed your servants. I alone have escaped to tell you." As Job was reeling from all this bad news, a fourth messenger arrived. A tornado struck the 4 corners of the house, and it killed all of your sons and daughters, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Job reacted by worshiping God, saying, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord has given, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Satan said to God, "Skin for skin, a man will give all that he has to save his own life. Stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bone, and he will surely curse you to your face." God replied, "Very well, Job is in your hands, but you must spare his life." So Satan left the presence of God with a plan to make Job curse God. Satan afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. In great distress, Job cut his hair and took some broken pottery to scratch his sores. Job's wife said to him, "Curse God and die." Job replied, "You speak like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God, but not the trouble?" Job's friends came to comfort him, and all 3 cried when they saw his distress. They sat down with him for 7 days and nights, and no one said a word, because they saw how great Job's suffering was. After 7 days, Job spoke, saying, "Why did I not die at birth? Then I would be with kings who built palaces that now live in ruins. The small and the great are there, and the servant is free from his master. The thing I greatly feared has come upon me, and what I dreaded has happened to me." Then Job's friend Eliphaz answered, Think how you have instructed many. Your words have supported those in trouble. But now trouble comes to you and you stumble? As for me, I would advise you to seek God. Happy is the man that Almighty God corrects. Job replied, a despairing man should have the kindness of his friends, but my friends, you have let me down. Show me where I have been wrong. What does your arguing prove to me? Is there any wickedness on my lips? What is man that you examine him every morning and test him every moment? If I have sinned, what have I done to you? Why have you made me your target? Job's friend BILDAD answered, how long will you speak these things? Your words are like wind. Does God meddle with justice? Does God change his judgment? Such is the destiny of all who forget God. The hope of those without God perishes. God will not reject a blameless man or strengthen the hands of the evil man. Job replied, how can a man be righteous before God? God is holy and mighty. When he passes me, I cannot see him. Since I am already found guilty by you, why should I struggle in vain? There is no one acting as a go-between to put my case to God, to remove his rod from me. I hate my life, so I will complain freely. I will speak of the bitterness in my soul. I wish that I had died. Job's friend Zophar answered, will your empty talk reduce men to silence? Will no one rebuke you for what you have said? I wish that God would speak up against you. If you will put your heart right with God and be forgiven your sin, then you could lift up your face without shame. Job replied, truly you are the only wise people, and wisdom will die with you. I have become a laughingstock to my friends, the one who called on God, and God answered. Though he slay me, I will still trust him. I will carry on my ways before him. He is my salvation, for no godless man could stand before him. You are all such miserable comforters. Surely even now my witness is in heaven. I know that my Redeemer lives, and in the end he will take his stand on the earth. When I die, I shall see God. I will see him with my own eyes. So these three friends of Job stopped answering him because he believed his life was right with God. Another young man that had joined them spoke out saying, I am young and you are old, so I was afraid to give you my opinion, as I thought your many years should teach you wisdom. But it is God who gives understanding. Old men are not always wise, nor do the old always understand justice. Listen to me a little longer, and I will show you that there is more to be said on God's behalf. God is excellent in power and in judgment. He will not afflict. Everyone stopped speaking. Then God spoke to Job in a whirlwind. Where were you when I laid the foundations of this world? Who determined its measurements? On what were its foundations laid? Or who laid the cornerstone? Surely you know. Where were you when the morning stars sang together and the angels shouted for joy? Have the gates of death been made known to you? Have you understood the vast expanses of the earth? Who gives food to the raven when its young cry out to God? Have you given the horse its strength? Do you clothe its neck with a flowing mane? Does the hawk fly by your wisdom and spread his wings towards the south in winter? Does the eagle soar at your command and make its nest in an unreachable place? The wings of an ostrich flap joyfully. She does not care that a stranger might trample on her eggs, for God did not give her wisdom or a share of understanding. The Lord continued to question Job about the wonders of his creation, and Job remained silent. Then Job answered the Lord, saying, I know you can do everything, and no plan of yours can be withheld. You asked, who was this that gives counsel without wisdom? I have spoken of things that I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I just did not know. Then the Lord spoke to Job's friends, I am angry with you, for you have not spoken what is right as my servant Job has. Job will pray for you, and I will accept his prayer and not deal with you according to your foolishness. After Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his prosperity, giving him twice as much as he had before. So the Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his early days. He once again became the wealthiest man in the land. Job lived for 140 years and then died. Here are some lesson learnings or teachings or takeaways that you should have gathered after you finished the study of Job chapter 8. Number 1, you should have gathered by this reading and just in life today for yourself that God is omnipresent, He's omnipotent, and He's omniscient all at the same time. 2, God is always in control of our life complexities and challenges, as well as the times of our celebrations. 3, God has His permissive will. He has a providential will as well, and in His permissive will, He allows the experiences that we gather in this life journey. Therefore, leading into number 4, every human being will have several experiences, multiple experiences of pleasure and pain. That's for every person born, every person who's already passed, who's transitioned already. Number 5, through your study, you should know that pain and suffering is just not limited to bad, evil, wicked, and corrupt people. No. Number 5 leads to number 6. There will be promotions and pleasures for everyone, and they're not just for what you call good, moral, ethical, religious people. Nope. There are billionaires and millionaires who have gathered their wealth and it was not ethical, yet they have been elevated, they've got promotions, and they've felt many, many moments of pleasure. And finally, number 7, only from this lesson, but also for your consideration, all life experiences that you have, that you've already have, and that you will face in the future should result in some learnings for your maturity and for your growth. And let me say this, if you call yourself a Christian, a child of God, a daughter, a son of God, it is for you to know that you belong to Him, and that just as Jesus suffered the ultimate way in giving up His life, we too who are connected to Him will have the same kinds of sadness as well as celebratory times. So all life experiences will result in something you should have learned and gathered for your growth. I'm Dr. Christy. We hope that you like our videos, our Sunday school lessons as we present every week. We hope that you will share these with your friends and family. Leave us a comment and subscribe to our channel so you'll know about our upcoming videos. God's best for you. You stay safe.